Good evening. I would like to know what sort of evaluation process this government will put in place for the Made in Australia projects. We, the taxpayers, are the underwriters to this plan and need a clear scoreboard to show transparently how our invested money is progressing.
Really interesting question, Valerie. Treasurer?
Yeah, great question, Valerie. And the good news is that we've got a really robust and rigorous framework to govern these kinds of investments that we're making in the industries and the jobs and the communities which will power our future. You know, our future Made in Australia is really at its core all about grabbing the big economic and industrial opportunities that come from the fact that the world is transforming its economy in the context of net zero, trying to become more energy efficient. And Australia's got a big opportunity there. We've got the resources base, the energy base, we've got the skills base, we've got the industrial base, and we're attractive as an investment destination. But what it requires from government is not to try and replace all of that private capital and all that private investment, but to try and attract it and deploy it and make sure we've got the people and the technology to make the most of it. And that's what a future Made in Australia is all about. And I understand, your question is not that far from the kinds of questions that we grapple with behind the scenes as we put these policies together, because I want to make sure that we get value for money out of this, whether it's renewable hydrogen, refining and processing critical minerals. I was in Gladstone this morning talking about these opportunities in Gladstone for a really important region of Australia. And in other opportunities as well. We know we need to get value for money. I'm confident that we will, and that's because we've got a national interest framework which imposes, and the legislation will too, a very rigorous, very robust framework so that you can see the kinds of things that determine whether we invest some private money, some public money in order to attract this private investment. Now,
Australians have their own ideas about how to spend the billions of dollars allocated to the future Made in Australia policy. Our Q&A YouGov survey ranked medical science ahead of green energy and critical minerals. But the Made in Australia policy has overwhelming support, according to that poll, with almost 90% of those polled backing the investment. Valerie, I was overwhelmed by that result. Like when I read it, I had to check, wow, that is just such a high number of Australians saying that they think it's a good idea. Do you share the sentiment? I know you're concerned about the process, but do you think it's a good investment?
I think that it's a chancy investment, and I think that unless there are progressive assessments along the way, which I think we would all like to know and see charted somehow, and I mean, there will be duds. So
yes.
Are you going to throw out the duds straight away?
Yeah, it's a good question. Are you going to throw out the duds?
Well, first of all, Valerie, I think the good news for anyone who shares your perspective on this is if you look at the $23 billion we're investing over 10 years, most of it, the majority of that is in tax breaks. They're called production tax credits for renewable hydrogen or to refine critical minerals. And if you're worried about the riskiness of that, you want to de-risk that, I can assure you and reassure you that people only receive those production tax credits in the event that they are producing. And so that takes some of the risk out of it. And so in the worst scenario that you might be contemplating, where we're not getting the kind of outcomes that we are prepared to co-invest in, if there's no production, there's no tax break. And so that's one of the ways that we've designed it very carefully to address some of the risks that you're identifying.
But you haven't addressed all of the risks that way. With the quantum computer, for instance, you gave that $1 billion, right?
No, we didn't.
Well, OK, explain what you did.
So we co-invested $470 million. The state government kicked in the same.
OK, so yes.
In fairness to you, there's almost $1 billion in government.
Yeah.
I should be fair to you and say
Thank you. It's first time he's been fair to me. But
I'm not frequently fair to her, but on this occasion, $470 million. And that is to build the world's first commercial scale quantum computer.
But if it's a dud, we don't get the money back, do we?
Some of it is loans, some of it is investments, some of it is grants. And that's a good example because we grappled with that for months and it went through so many different processes. It had boards of technical people and legal people and foreign investment and all of those sorts of things to make sure that it was in our national interest, and I'm confident that it is. And that's because whether it's a Future Made in Australia agenda, including medical technology, but also renewable energy and refined critical minerals and the like, we have some huge opportunities in this country and we can't afford to waste them.